my precious friend in. Da da da! Yay, Linda! Here we are, finally.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me here.
Oh, I'm just tickled. You know what? I think back. Gosh, how many years ago was that?
2016.
16.
Was it 16?
Woo!
17? I'm of
Blows
that
my
certain age
mind.
where certain numbers come and go out of my head. I don't
Mine
know.
mostly go.
I think it was 2016, but it could have been 17, whatever. A good chunk of time that we have gotten to kind of bond and connect and see each other each year at the annual conferences.
Yeah, and I just love what you do because you and I have a kindred spirit in the fact that we like to make people laugh. And I've seen you perform, and it's incredible. So, Linda, kind of tell me about your journey to what you're doing now. I always like to let folks give a kind of a pattern or a path.
I thank you for that question because something just happened for me in my career that ties directly into what you're talking about in terms of humor. I, like many people, have a story. In my life, so many people do a history. Sometimes it's not always a beautiful story, but I had a mental health journey in my early years that was at times really traumatic. And I got awesome help, and I really worked hard, and I learned how to manage all that. And what was important for me to stay in a place of mental well-being. And we're going back decades, but when you have trauma in your life from a long time ago, that stuff hangs around for a long time. So with some really good professional help, I started unraveling all that and figuring it all out. So a little bit of my story shows up in my presentations. I was suffering from clinical depression, anxiety, and the very morning I came the closest to taking my own life, I got kidnapped and held hostage by an escaped convict for 6 hours. Yeah, I know. So talk about making me rethink life and death. Well, 1 minute I think I'm out, I can't handle this anymore, and then the next minute I'm like, I think I changed my mind. When you have a 357 Magnum in your face, you kind of change your mind.
Lindy, how long ago was that?
In my 20s. Married, divorced, had a 2-year-old baby boy, and was making $55 a week at a law office and suffering from clinical depression, anxiety, panic, just stuff.
Goodness. Wow.
But see, here's the cool thing. So that story shows up a little bit sometimes, just the part about where I was in my life, and then the kidnapping and how that shifted everything for me, and how it set me on a path to really placing a high priority on my mental well-being. So I spoke somewhere years ago for a meeting planner who was now in Sarasota and headed up this big mental health summit. And she called me and said, I know you have a story. I don't think you tell the entirety of your story, but would you come and be our keynote presenter at this big summit and tell your whole story and what you do and did then to get to where you are today? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's the conversations about mental well-being, mental health that are so scary for so many people. And she said, it's called, the name of the conference was Step into the Light. She said, would you step into the light? And I said, sure. And so I wrote the story. But I didn't want to just tell, okay, here was the story. I wanted to go, and here's what I did then and what I continue to do to stay in this place of just of joy and happiness and health. And then, you know what the number one thing was that came out as I was writing this? It was a 50-minute presentation. The number one first thing that came out as I'm writing it was the power of humor. And I didn't even launch into my story. I first launched into some funny stuff that the audience was laughing. And for 5 minutes, they're just laughing. And I said to them, I know you're probably thinking this was a bait and switch because it says in the program, I'm going to tell my story, and I am. But I want to tell you, more importantly, what are the tools that I used to help me get to where I am today? And I didn't want to just tell you, I wanted you to experience it. And it's the power of humor. So I was reintroduced to that and reinforced that when afterwards, it was hundreds of people in the audience. I can't tell you how many people came up and said, I forgot all about the power of humor. I think that's what's been missing. Things have been so stressful, and I just have been hanging on by a thread, but I forgot about that. So thank you for the reminder. And I think you, sister, you've been taking this message out into the world for the longest time. I had to. I just hadn't tied it back to why it's so important. It's fun, it feels good, it shifts your perspective and all that good stuff. But man, there's other powerful benefits. So go humor.